In light phase reactions, we understood that the phosphorylation takes place. That phosphorylation is called photophosphorylation. Synthesis of ATP by coupling the ADP and phosphate. ATP is energy rich, ADP is less energy. So in order to synthesize the ATP, energy is required. It is an exergonic process. Now we need to understand how the light energy is present in light, no doubt, but how this energy is transferred to ATP for the synthesis of ATP during the light phase reactions. That is what we try to understand. Synthesis of ATP explained through a theory known as chemiosmotic theory. How an electron transport during the light phase reactions, when light falls on the photosystems, chlorophyll molecules become excited. They pass through the different carriers. Electron transport is there. Light induced electron transport coupled to ATP's energy for the synthesis of ATP. This is the big question. In light phase reactions, ATP synthesis is there, phosphorylation is there, photophosphorylation is there, but how that process occurs explained by chemiosmotic theory. An electrochemical gradient will be established. Electrochemical gradient, or it is also known as proton motive force, PMF delta P. Membrane becomes energized. So this chemiosmotic theory to explain the synthesis of ATP was first proposed by Peter Pidgeon, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1978. So he did not explain actually how the ATPs are synthesized, but he said that the membrane becomes energized because of the gradient, electrochemical gradient. For the contribution to the Nobel Prize, for the contribution to the understanding of biological energy transfer through formation of chemiosmotic theory. It is not a theory, just it is not speculation, it is not imagination, but is a fact. ATP importance. ATP is energy rich, energy temporary storer. It can be transferred to any process, transported to any place, synthesized through specific enzymes, catalyzed, split by specific enzymes. The regeneration of ATP by way of oxidative and photosynthetic phosphorylation thus plays a complete role in the energy supply of life. So phosphorylation takes place mainly by two: photophosphorylation in green plants, oxidative phosphorylation in respiration. This oxidative phosphorylation both in plants and animal systems, even the microbial systems. Photosystem is present, photophosphorylation is present only in green plants. In green plants, they synthesize the ATP by photophosphorylation as well as oxidative phosphorylation. Sometimes even by the substrate level phosphorylation, because it is a very important, it is energy currents required for every chemical reaction, energy required process. Peter Midgley proposed, he actually got the Nobel Award in 78, proposed in 61, got the Nobel Award in 78. Electron transport give rise to, so for synthesis of ATP, a requisite for the establishment of proton gradient, of course, the membrane itself is impermeable to protons. This I will explain like this. Chemiosmotic hypothesis was received with reservation. Some people did not accept, or they have their own reservations. Peter Mitchell. This diagram is important. How the ATPs are synthesized. This thylakoid. This is thylakoid, outer membrane, inner membrane. This is a stroma, that inner membrane space. PS2, P6080, false light. Then here the water molecule undergoes splitting. What are the products of photolysis of water? 2 protons, 2 electrons, 2 protons, 2 electrons, and 1 molecule of oxygen. So these protons, electrons pass through different electron carriers. For example, plastoquinone, upon accepting, it becomes reduced. Then these protons are accepted by cytochrome B6F complex. Then plastocyanin accepted by PS1, whose reaction center is P700. Here also electromagnetic radiations, the photons. Then systems involved are FD, and here NADP is reduced to NADPH2. So during this process, electron transport, what happens? Many of the protons from the reduced compounds are released or ejected into this site. When the electron transport takes place, the protons pass from one to other. Electrons pass through. The protons are pushed to this site, the lumen site. As a result, what happens? More protons accumulate here. More and more protons. Less protons this side. More protons this side, less protons. More positiveness this side, less positiveness this side. So this is a sort of electrochemical gradient. Proton motive force. More protons this side, less protons this side. As a result, what the Peter Mitchell said, the membrane becomes energized because it has more load on one side, less load on another side, load of protons. As this process goes on for some time, protons are pushed to this side, no protons this side. But this is impermeable. This membrane is impermeable. These protons cannot cross this membrane and go this side to compensate or to neutralize this pH. That is what they called it as proton motive force or electrochemical gradient or delta. So as a result, more load of protons this side, less load of protons this side, it becomes energized. More load on it. It bears the load. These protons, if they want to go this side, there is no other chance because it is impermeable. The membrane is impermeable. But fortunately, what happens here and there in some places, some carriers or some molecules are interpolated, introduced in the membrane. They are nothing but ATP synthesis. These accumulated protons can pass through this ATP synthesis to this site. You can see the arrow mark here. Protons passing through the ATP. Not through this, not through this, not through this. Only through ATP synthesis. And when the protons pass through this, I repeat, this is more load of protons this side, less load of proton this side. Therefore, there will be a load on membrane. It becomes energized. But protons cannot pass through this. But interestingly, fortunately, some molecules here and there are introduced, they are ATP synthesis. The protons can pass through the ATP synthesis through this. Only through those ATP synthesis they are permitted, not through other places, not through other molecules. When they pass, so there will be some rotation here, alpha, beta, gamma, then subunits will be there. It functions as a motor, and when that motor functions, ATP and ADP are coupled to form the ATP. Because this molecule is helping into is, it is allowing the passage of the protons. At the same time, whatever the energy that is present in the protons is converted to ATP by coupling the ADP and phosphate. Here this is head-like structure, F1, FO, the regions will be there. When the protons pass through, that motor, a mini motor rotates. During that rotation process, ADP and phosphate are coupled to form ATP. This is phosphorylation. This molecule is ATP synthase. This is ATP synthase. So thus what is happening? Simply speaking, 3 or 4 steps. Light falls on photosystems. Chlorophyll molecules become excited. Electrons pass through different carriers. Electron transport. During that process, the protons are pushed to one side, lumen side. As this process occurs for a long time, more protons this side, less protons this side. An electrochemical gradient will be established that is called proton motive force. As a result, this membrane of thylakoid membrane becomes energized. So because of the gradient, more here, less here, these protons always try to go the other side from higher concentration to lower concentration. But it is not, this is impermeable membrane. These are also impermeable. But only the permeable structures are ATP synthesis. So these protons pass through the ATP synthesis. It is almost a mini motor. When the protons pass, the head structure, especially the head structure that contains alpha, beta, gamma subunits, rotates. During that rotation, ADP and phosphates are coupled to form the ATP, that is ATP synthesis or phosphorylation, supported by ATP synthase. So this is actually ATP synthesis process, but it consists of 2 parts. One, as Peter Midger said, that this membrane becomes energized. Simply he said that an electrochemical gradient will be established. He imagined that this may be the reason, or this may be the one of the things that is required for ATP, but he did not explain how actually the structure of the ATP synthase, or how ATP synthesis functions, and how ATPs are synthesized. This he did not explain. Later on, Paul Boyer explained the process of actual ATP synthesis. This is what the synthesis of ATP, chemiosmotic. The chemiosmotic synthesis explains only membrane energy. Thank you. In next lecture, I will explain you about the dark phase reactions.